Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. There's one thing he mentions. You have ikhlas. And as I mentioned to you before, that ikhlas is an amal ikhtiyari. It's a voluntary action. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will question you regarding ikhlas. He will question you regarding riyah. That means it has to be something within your capacity. لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها. If ikhlas and riyah was something you couldn't even control, Allah would not hold you to task for this. Yes, so as long as you acquire knowledge and you make an intention correctly, then this is your ikhlas and this is your riyah, depending on what intention you make. Correct? Achha. We also have to remember, so that sometimes concealing an action is also a good thing. إن تبدوا الصدقات فإنما هي وإن تخفوها أو تؤتوها الفقراء فهو خير لكم. So you can also sometimes the demands, the circumstances necessitate that you do the action publicly. You give the sadaqah openly. Sometimes the circumstances require that you give the sadaqah privately and quietly. Understood? Achha. Now, however, what the ulama have mentioned is that over-obsession with concealing your deeds is also, not necessarily riyah, but is also a sign that you have an obsession with the makhluk. You're not doing things for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So one is, I'm going to go to the masjid early so somebody can see me. I'm going to read Quran in the masjid so somebody can see me. I'm going to do dua so somebody can see me. This is riyah. Because your maqsood is to show somebody, mura'at, to show somebody. But at the same time, if you over-obsess that, if I go to the masjid and somebody might see me, I don't want to go early. If I do Quran in the masjid, somebody will see me, I don't want to see me. If I do dua after salah and somebody sees me crying, I don't want that to happen. And this also, that means that the makhluk is in your mind. That they're, like, basically you should do the amal. It's Allah and everything else, it just comes and goes. You think, basically you should think, well, if you perform salah in this room, middle of the night, nobody sees you. You don't think, oh, the chair is there. Oh no, that chair is there. Oh no, the cupboards are there. The handle is there. The carpet is there. You think, this is just... But similarly, or another example, when you go to the haram, you don't think, oh, he's watching, because nobody knows you and everybody's doing their own thing. So you should have that kind of feeling that I'm just doing my action. It doesn't matter what anybody else is watching me, not watching me, just do this. Do you understand? And he goes on to say that sometimes they can be takabbur ma'allah. Takabbur Allah. So one is reject Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like, Fir'aun and Haman and people like who reject Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But it was also one form of takabbur is that you're willing to carry out an ibadah in private, but you don't want people seeing you do that ibadah. Like, I'm crying, I'm making dua, and I'm crying, but then I don't want that. I don't want to have this in public. Are you following? So you're not supposed to do it to show people, but if you're in public and you're making dua and you start to cry, then it's like you don't make a show and fiasco. But then, so I don't want somebody to see me crying. My thing with Allah. Are you proud that people shouldn't see you? Yes, it's a very subtle masala. It's not that simple. But he's saying that wants to leave an amal because you don't want somebody to see me doing this ibadah. It's also a form of to leave an amal because of somebody. One is I don't want to see my amal. That's also not part of ikhlas. And to do them because it might be a bit embarrassing or they might think that I'm pious. Ideally, ikhlas is, look, I am doing this action with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if the thoughts and waswasawis come to your mind, oh, he might be watching me, he might see me. That's all wasawis. Just say, look, I'm doing it for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, only for Allah's sake. And the way you can understand that, whether it's for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or whether something else is involved, is if they weren't there, would you still have carried out? Yeah, you would have. I mean, you're not doing it for them, it's that they are there and now that's disturbing you mentally. You understand? And what happens when you get used to something afterwards? It's like, it becomes easy. You can never get, remember, like, you have a wasf, sifa, and a description, and you have a being, the noun, that thing that's described. That's not in good English words, but you get a mahal, you get the wasf, and the mawsuf and the wasf, the na'at and the man'ut. So you can only have the word kabir, big can only appear when you have a ball. You can only have good when you have an amal. So the amal can only become good when there's an amal. Are you following? So you can't get a sincere amal without amal. So the way to practice sincerity is by just keep on doing it. And what happens after a while is, when you do something, then it just becomes normal. You start, initially, because everything that's new to you is a bit different, uncomfortable, it feels a bit odd. But when you start doing it over and over again, it becomes normal. So let's say, for example, you said, you know what, yeah, I've heard in the bayan, I've heard in the masjid, I've heard in the hadith, I've read in the hadith, that we go to the masjid early, there's reward for this. As long as you're in the masjid, you're waiting for salah, you'll get reward for salah. So okay, I'm going to go early. But oh no, people might see me, and I feel a bit weird, you go to the masjid, you feel, oh, I'm sitting in front of, just leave it. When you do it after like 2 or 3 weeks, or whatever time it is, depending on the person's nature, you wouldn't even think, oh, somebody's watching me, just carry on. So the more you do something, it becomes normal. Like, for example, if a person first starts teaching, he sits down and teaches, he sits down to teach. He feels, oh no, somebody's watching me and I'm not going to be showing off, I'm doing it for Allah's sake. And then after teaching for 5 years, is that that even doesn't come into your mind. Like, you don't even care who's in class and whose students are there, and you don't even think the thought that they may think something about you don't even come to class. You're just thinking, I got to explain this hadith properly, I got to explain this fiqh mas'ala properly. That never come into class. Because why? You've now practiced and you've gone past that thing. That's why I was just, I read somewhere right now that sometimes when you have football matches or football teams, they try to get the B team integrated into the first team. Why? Because now, you go to a big ground, away games, you see the environment, the hostility, then what happens after a while? It goes away. So if you immerse in it, I mentioned this before as well, I call it exposure therapy. You get immersed in the hostile stadium, you see people booing at you, you see how it is, you see the thing. Then when you actually start doing it, what happens then? You are kind of into it. It doesn't really freak you out that much. So similarly in the amal, the more you do it, the more it becomes easier. So never leave an amal. Sincerity, just give Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Don't overhide it. If you got a choice, well, if you can, like, two positions, you can hide it, is better. But like, don't go so much out of your way where your amal becomes disturbed. If you can hide it without disturbing your amal, then it's better. But if you can't do it, then just carry on with this one. Do you understand?